Happy Thursday, Facebook friends. Welcome back to Facebook. I'm Angie Garza, Director of Professional Learning and Educational Services at ROE 47, serving Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside counties. And if you're joining us back here this fine Thursday on Facebook, you'll know that it's time for another edition of Teacher Talk. And as we close out our 2023 year and look forward to 2024, we have a few exciting things that are on the horizon involving all things technology. So today on Teacher Talk, we're going to be talking not only about our upcoming technology summit to be held on Friday, January 19th at Sauk Valley Community College in Dixon, but we are also talking about the latest buzz in technology, artificial intelligence. And so we're super, I don't know if excited or scared or intrigued. I'm not sure which description I would use, Stacy, but maybe it's intrigued. I'm intrigued to have more conversations about technology and artificial intelligence with our special guest today, Ben Sondgeroth from the Illinois LTC. But before we introduce Ben, would like to take a moment to introduce my friend, colleague, and co-host, Ms. Stacy Dingus, to our Teacher Talk platform this morning. Stacy, AI, how do you feel about that?
Good morning, Angie. Well, I'm definitely here to learn. Something you can definitely say that is a consistent thing in the world of education is it's always changing, right? There's always something new to learn, a new way to teach our students, a new way to interact with parents and community. This is an interesting one because I have a child at home that will be going to college in August of next year. So she is filling out college applications, writing a lot of narratives for scholarships. And so this whole idea of AI and kind of allowing the computer to take over and be your voice definitely interests me. So I'm excited to hear about what our expert has to say today.
Stacy, full disclosure here. As we kick off and start talking about artificial intelligence, the questions that we are actually going to be engaging with today with our special guest have been written by artificial intelligence. So we're bringing this full circle. We know that AI is not only a trending topic in our educational systems, but it's also kind of extending its reach to other parts of our economy and our society in the business world. We saw it with the writers and the actors strike this summer to protect intellectual property and creative rights. So certainly far-reaching implications for advances in technology. And who better to speak on this topic? And we've tapped him several times this fall already, than our dear friend down the hallway from the Illinois LTC, Ben Sondgeroth. So Ben, hi, welcome. This is the real me welcoming you and not some kind of generated artificial intelligence. So thanks so much for being here today. And if you wouldn't mind, our viewers are very familiar with you. You're going to get the gold jacket for being on Teacher Talk, like SNL.
Yeah.
But welcome back. If you want to introduce or reintroduce yourself to our Facebook community and maybe start planting some seeds about we're talking about artificial intelligence, what is that? And why are we talking about it in education?
Yeah, thanks. I feel like I should get a reoccurring guest t-shirt or something like that. Like I'm a reoccurring teacher talker or something along those lines. Like that'd be great. I actually considered for the keynote that you had me be a part of last Friday for the transitional English group, trying to find a tool that would just do it for me and like mirror me and stuff like those exist. Like I can find the program, I could just say a few words and then just let it talk for me. But I felt like being authentic and not going that route. But yeah, happy to be here. Ben Sondgeroth, Lead Regional EdTech Coordinator for the Learning Technology Center, and happy to talk about AI. It's been something that I have been very passionate about as it has, woven its way into all forms of society over the course of the last calendar year, in an ever-growing expansion and kind of thing. Like I was just having a conversation last Thursday as we talk about, we're going to focus it in on education, but outside of the grander scope of education, how it's being implemented. Had a very interesting conversation at the ladies' night for St. Mary's School in Dixon as I was working it with Matt Baker, whose wife Beth is a funeral home director. And he said that they are using it in the funeral home to write obituaries, as a way to like, hey, here's these things that we need from you, the family. And then they plug those things in, and then the AI tool generates the obit for the funeral home, which he said used to take his wife anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to complete. Now takes around, like less than 5 minutes to do, which, frees up a lot of that time, right? That it can be used doing other things. Which is, pretty fascinating. So he wanted to kind of put a pin in that to circle back with me about some more information on how they could do it. And I actually had a teacher at a workshop last week who had recently lost her father, and they said that that's how the funeral home did it for them. And, it's just very interesting how something like that, in the real world, how it's being used, by an industry that you would think like, how would a funeral home director use artificial intelligence? And well, that's how, as an industry. So what AI is, we'll get to your question as I circle back to that. What AI is artificial intelligence, in the simplest way that I can explain it, is a computer program and a computer tool that is created to mimic human intelligence. So it is not a tool that is exactly human intelligence. It doesn't, have feelings or its own original thoughts or anything like that. But it is built and constructed to mirror human intelligence and mimic us. So it is programmed with a database, or these tools are programmed with a database that is then able to, we're able to ask it a question or give it a prompt. It's able to draw on that database and give us a response that would mirror what a human's response would be. So I can ask, Stacy a question, I can ask Angie a question, and they would be able to give me an answer based off of their own experiences, off of their own knowledge. AI is just that. I can prompt it, and then it will give me a response based on the information that it's given. So how is it being used in schools is the really interesting component to this. A lot of ways. One of the ways that we'll kind of frame the whole talk around today is how we can use AI as our teacher's assistant. I think that's the important thing that we need to look at here as it's being used in education, and maybe not even as a TA in that it's going to do stuff for me as a teacher, which it will, but also in that it's going to eventually trickle into our students' worlds and give our kids the ability to have a teacher's assistant at any point in time. So a student can use a chat tool to ask for help. So one of the things, we worry about in education is that chatbot's going to write a paper for our kid. Very much a worry that we should have. The thing that we need to maybe reshift our thinking on this is, it's also going to be there if my kid is confused on a topic and it's going to ask for clarification, and the chatbot, the AI, is going to give clarification on a complex topic to our student that otherwise they wouldn't be able to get. And that's a really powerful use of this. I was just doing this actually yesterday. So Angie, you guys were hosting the social studies workshop last week here at the ROE. And you and Krista were talking about, the different inquiry standards and things like that. And being out of the classroom for the last several years, I didn't know that that was an update. I'm doing a presentation at RSAC on social studies next week. I went to Google's Bard yesterday, and I was just like, give me a breakdown on the new ways that inquiry is being introduced into Illinois learning standards for social studies. It gave me like an awesome 2-page breakdown. And now I feel like I'm pretty up to speed on it. And I asked it for specific examples. It gave me specific examples. It was pretty cool. I didn't have to go digging through ISBE's website to find, stuff. I didn't have to go into all these complex, Google searches. It's just gave me the answer, which was really helpful in freeing my time and allowing me to focus in on what I needed, but not wasting 45 minutes doing a complex Google search and clicking through a bunch of links and everything like that. So if we kind of frame it as, I'll wrap this part of it with how it's being used in schools. One of the things that we want to look at is how can it help us be more efficient? How can it free up time for us to do other things that it can't do? That's the way I want to kind of always frame my AI, conversations around.
You said something that kind of struck a chord with me. And I, in my early life, was an English language arts teacher. And I'm also someone who, admittedly, it's a bad habit, but I don't like change and I don't like to learn new things. And so you know, I sit here and listen to you and think if I had my teacher hat on, how would I feel about this?
Mhm.
And then I go back to the point, the very good point that you said about shifting our mindset and thinking it's not about doing the work for the student, but it's more about being an assistant for the student, which I think is key. So with that being said, tell us a little bit about tools or websites that are available and out there that can show teachers how AI can be used and how it can be used as an assistant and helpful and not to do the work for the student.
So it's a big wide world because your inboxes have all been flooded with tools sending you things that saying, we've updated, we have AI, we have AI, we have AI. Every other day, I feel like I get inundated with like a new AI tool. So there are many. And what I caution teachers with is, you know, not getting overwhelmed with the amount of AI tools that are out there. It's like anything with technology, like find the ones that work for you. Keep those in your tool belt. Don't go crazy trying to find 700 tools that use AI. But also understand that AI is integrated into a lot of stuff that we already do. So we're already using AI in a lot of stuff. I actually, found, Google has got so much AI already built in the fact that, we can have predictive text in Google Docs and in Gmail, so we start typing, it says you should do this, like, oh yeah, that sounds good, tab. And now I've written a sentence by typing 2 words. That's AI. And so like, it's all innate. Now, all that said, kind of the ones that I am pointing teachers towards, there are, I would say, 4 that I think are worth exploring like right now. 2 of them are traditional chatbots. And so what I say when I mean a chatbot, these are natural language processors. And so these are what are called NLPs, natural language processors. And these are tools that are designed to sound like humans. So when I say before, like they're designed to mimic us and mirror us, these are literally like chats that we can go back and forth and get responses from, just like we chat back and forth in Google Chat, or we chatted back on ICQ and AIM back in the day. And there's your friend on the other side that was responding to you. Like, that's what these are. They have a box at the bottom and a send button, and you type something in and it sends it and it gives you a response back. So the 2 that I focus in on with that are Google's Bard and ChatGPT. I have been kind of shifting a lot of my attention over to Bard because I think it's going to be just more ingrained in my work life just because it's a Google tool. It's free and available right now. Now, a lot of these things, we want to be cautious when we talk about using them with kids, because several of these terms of services say that they can only be used by 18 and over. ChatGPT did drop its age requirement to 13 and over. So some schools have opened it up for students. You always want to be cautious with where data is going, privacy, things like that, what information you're sending and where. But all that said, Bard is something that I'm very passionate about right now. I think Google's Bard is really cool and as a chatbot, because it searches the internet along with its database. And I think that's important because it can give us real-time information. So you can go to Bard and you can say, I need a summary of Illinois' basketball win last night. So as we're recording this week, a little earlier from when it's coming out, Illinois had a big win last night against FAU at the Garden. I can type that into the chatbot. It'll give me a summary of the game, which is fantastic. ChatGPT can't do that. ChatGPT's database is limited to only January of 2022. And it is not an active search of the internet. So again, just some things you have to really realize back and forth. However, these 2 tools, when we're talking about them in the scope of education, they'll do everything for you as far as like, they will give you a lesson plan. They will give you ideas on how to make connections. I was just going through and I have these ideas for my session that I'm doing next week. I already had the idea, but I needed some specific examples. So I went to Bard and I asked Bard, one of my sessions at RSAC is going to be about bringing the social media style to your classroom projects. And so I needed some ideas on how a teacher might do an unboxing in their classroom, because I think that's really cool. I had the idea to do an unboxing, but I want some specifics. I asked Bard, it gave me a response. Here's a way you can do it in history class. Here's a way you can do it in a literature class. Here's a way you can do it in a science class. I was like, boom, that's awesome. Like, I don't have to spend, I'm not a science teacher. I got some ideas, but like, this is a great way to like draw on that, right? So it can kind of refine and give me those ideas and topics. It'll give me lesson plans, all that type of stuff. ChatGPT will do the same thing. And so those are two really cool. Now, as far as like tools to explore for like that are education focused, there are two that come to mind. Magic School AI is amazing. Like, it does literally everything. And Diffit is another one that is really fascinating. So both of those tools, when we're using AI, what you have to be worried about is the prompt. So am I asking the right question to get the right answer? Okay. What Magic School and Diffit both do is they essentially remove they refine your prompt for you. And so like in Magic School, there are 50 different tiles that you can choose from. And those tiles then do a specific thing. So I'm looking at it right now. I have a rubric generator in Magic School AI. So I need a rubric for a paper that I'm having my kids do, or a project that they're doing. I could have ChatGPT or Bard make a rubric for me, but I would have to go in and say, I need a rubric for Magic School removes that I need a rubric for, and just like I go into the rubric generator, I say what standard I want or standards I want to cover, my objectives, the curriculum, the point scale, done. Sends me a rubric. It's very cool. We were looking at it. Another example in here that I found to be fascinating. Kelly was in my office yesterday. We were talking about this. It has a real world example generator. So I can take a standard, put it into this, and then it generates 3 real world scenarios that focus in on that standard. So then I can like take that to my kids and be like, no, this is why you need to learn this topic. And like, I don't have to ask it, like, give me a real world scenario. It just does it for me. And those things are just so powerful to be able to just expand what we're teaching, expand our thought process and stuff like that. And then Diffit is the other one, Diffit. That one's really cool. It's only going to be free until the end of January, though. Magic School is free for now. I would imagine they're going to go paid soon because the tool is just so powerful. But Diffit is free. Diffit, the thing that's cool about Diffit is you can take and paste a standard in or an objective, and it will generate a ton of stuff for you and then export it all directly to Google. It'll put it all into a Google Doc, a Google Quiz, Forms, a presentation and slides. It's pretty special. So definitely some really cool tools to check out. But those are kind of the 4 that I'm pointing teachers towards right now as like ways that they can use them as their teachers' assistants.
Exciting times in our culture and exciting times in education to think about the fact that we kind of have the world at our fingertips, and that is exponentially growing with the number of tools and what all those things can do. The flip side of that is, I'm going to go back to something I mentioned earlier. I referenced the writer and actors guild strike. Stacy brought up we don't want students to have AI write a paper for them. There's probably a dark side to maybe some of these artificial intelligence tools or capabilities that we perhaps need to consider or be aware of. So, from your work in the field, as you're introducing this, aside from the, reactions, what are some of those true worries that people have about using AI, and are these worries reasonable? What are some of those more genuine concerns versus maybe lack of education or awareness?
I think everybody should be worried about this technology. Like, I kind of start off a lot of my talks with, you should have all the feels about AI. You should be excited. You should be worried. You should be scared. You should be nervous. You should be, encouraged. It should be all of the above, and that's okay. And I think some of the worries and fears come a lot with like, how are these systems being trained? Who's putting the data into them? Because it's, I use it's a dark equation, but like, or an example, but, if the white nationalists and white supremacists, group comes up with an AI tool and releases it, and somebody goes in and asks it a question, it's going to probably be only programmed with white supremacist and white nationalist ideology. And you might not know that. Like, you might just see this new chat tool come up and you're like, oh, this is interesting, and everything. And it might not be blatant, but like all of a sudden you're realizing like, wait a second, or like, there's not any examples of anything other than like this white ideology. Right. And that's scary because we don't know what these programs have been trained on. They have an inherent bias, maybe not intentionally, but there's bias to them. And so, you know, like I had it write a story about my son's summer activities. And this is a very like, you know, not a crazy example because it's, you know, pretty much true most of the time, but like it said Ryder and his dad returned home from the golf course and his mom made him lunch. Like, yeah, Ryder's mom probably does make him lunch most of the time. But also, like, what if I had AI write that story about one of my students and my student's mom, my student doesn't have a mom? AI just assumed that the little boy in the story had a mom, right? And then it says, and then Ryder and his dad went out and played baseball. I didn't put anything in the prompt about me being the one, his dad being the one he played baseball with. And in fact, when I was putting that story into a book in Book Creator, the only picture I could find was of my wife and Ryder playing baseball. So I had to change that text, right? It's not like a big thing, but it's like one of those things where like the AI just kind of makes assumptions and it has a little bit of bias to it, right? And so that's a real concern though that we should have is like who trains these systems? How do they think? How do they process? And what data do they output in what way? You know, we've seen some stuff that's pretty crazy with like image generation tools, like being very much like, oh, you put in like, I want a teacher and it's only females. And then you're like, well, wait a second, there's male teachers too, right? But like, you know, so it's just like stuff like that I think as the systems grow, that stuff will kind of alleviate and be, you know, less and less. But you also have to be aware that these systems can be trained on specificnness. So like, you know, countries could develop their own AI that have their own agenda. You know, we've seen, you know, communist states aren't above something like that, right? So, you know, it's just very interesting, like as far as these worries. But then how do our kids use them? You know, like that's, I think then the worrisome part of this is like, does our kid find an AI generative tool that is biased? Or does our kid find an AI generative tool that, you know, they start to just ask for specific things and it doesn't regenerate anything new or outside of what they should use? So like, that's a really fear. The other fear, it's a more granular fear is like just letting, or more, you know, bigger fear is like just letting the AI do a lot of stuff that maybe should have more human, you know, impact, right? So, you know, I had, you know, one of my coworkers said that his son wrote all his thank you notes for his graduation gifts using AI. And at first I was like, yeah, that's cool. But also like, yeah, that kid should learn how to write a thank you note. You know, like he's a high school senior. Like I suffered through writing a lot of thank you notes, like write your own thank you notes, you know, like stuff like that. Like it should have a human element, I feel like, to some of that stuff. And so I think some, you know, we have to kind of draw the line on like, what's that mundane, dull task that AI can do? But also like what tasks do we need to maybe reshape? Maybe we have AI start the thank you notes, but we add our own like thoughts at the end of it too. And I think that's where people have like the biggest fear is like, how does this become unhuman then in our interactions? You know, are all of our emails written by AI? Or do we still want to make sure we're writing our own emails too and communicating our own thoughts versus letting the computer decide our thoughts? So those are some of the worries. There's a lot more. Like if you listen to some people, they're worried about, you know, crazy stuff happening and the machines really literally taking over and convincing us and learning from themselves. That's a whole nother topic that, you know, I don't really want to get into that today, but it's out there. Look up Jeffrey Hinton. He's the godfather of AI. He's also raising a lot of alarm bells about AI, and he's the one that like created it. So as it currently is. So yeah, there's concerns, there's fears. My, you know, preface is always like, go and get educated on it, like learn about it, learn how it works. That's our best way to combat some of those fears and mitigate them.
Ben, there's no doubt that AI very much feels very futuristic. And with that being said, can you talk a little bit about how that can help students in their future jobs, future careers, maybe post-secondary, and, you know, essentially how this makes learning better for our students, for our teachers, for our schools, because it is the future, like it or not. And like you have said several times in this teacher talk, you know, the important thing is to learn about it and get educated about it. So tell us a little bit about how this is going to be helpful in the future for our students, maybe for future careers, and how essentially it will make learning overall better.
Yeah, career-wise, it's wild. There's a lot of crazy predictions out there about how many jobs this could potentially displace. You know, think about how many jobs technology already displaces, you know, from our lifetime that we've been around, right? Like the factories don't exist like the factories did in the 70s and the 80s. Like those are all, you know, we're replacing them with robots. Those robots are now learning to use artificial intelligence to become even more efficient. And so one of the things that we have to work with our students is, how do we leverage AI effectively? How do you have the skills as a student to be able to go out into the field and manipulate AI databases and use them effectively to be a more productive worker that's doing the human element more efficiently, right? And I think that's the big thing. Like, I think I can't remember the exact data point, but the percentage of job listings on LinkedIn this summer that included efficient using AI databases or AI tools skyrocketed. Like, it was like a percentage that was crazy high, where employers are now wanting people that know not like how to make an AI system, but just know how to use it effectively, because employers see the value in, if we stop Joe spreadsheet user from having to spend most of his time just sifting through spreadsheets all day long, and we can free him up because AI can shift through the spreadsheets, but then, and he has to prompt the AI to do it though, but then he can do other things that his brain can unlock. Like, what's the value added there, right? Which is interesting to me, like. And then as far as our kids go, I've been showing teachers like just the ease of translating documents to help kids that can't read or speak English. Like, that's one that I've been seeing used a lot. Like, hey, we've got this kid who speaks no English. We have our small rural K-8 district in the middle of ROE 47 that has no one on staff that also speaks Spanish or whatever language it is. Let's take your worksheet, put it into the chat GPT, put it into Bard, and say translate. And it does it instantly. That's powerful. That's helping our kids. That's being their teacher's assistant. And so I think if we have to, like, instead of just outright banning it and saying like, you don't use it. I'm not saying like open it up to all the kids, but like start having the conversations with them. Like, how do you use it effectively? What equals a prompt that is good? Why, when I just type in like write an essay on Huck Finn, is that essay bad? Yeah, it is. But if I show them like, hey, I'm going to use these prompts differently, I'm going to program this, differently, I'm going to get a better response, right? And so that's some stuff that I think is really, really helpful for our students, is accommodations. I think the biggest thing that people are grabbing onto too is the translation thing and the reading level thing, and making accommodation for students that need, I have IEPs that have 504 plans, and I can put in text and I can say, write this at a 4th grade reading level for a student that reads at a 4th grade level. Done. I can take my multiple choice test that I've been giving, for the last couple of years. That's a really effective test. But then I have 6 kids in my classroom that only need 3, that have an accommodation on their IP that says they should only have 3 choices instead of 4. Oh, now I got to go through and like mark all those off or give it to a teacher aide. No, I can take that document, put it into a chatbot and say, remove 3 or remove one of the wrong answers for each one of these questions. And it does it. And then, and so these are like things that can really help teachers, help students, right? And I think that's really important, like focusing on how this can help our kids, how it can help you, how it can help our students. I was a struggling math student. I can go in and I can ask it, hey, I need a better example of how I can do derivatives. It'll tell me, like it's really, really cool. One of the things I would challenge you to do is go in and ask it to explain quantum physics to you. And it'll do it. And then say, explain quantum physics to me like I'm a 5th grader. And it'll do it. And it's amazing, because when I did that, it started bringing in Marvel references and talking about like Marvel movies and how like, oh, in this one, it did this. That's an example of quantum and like microscopic and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I kind of have a better understanding of that now. Like, so that's like a really cool thing too, of like, how do I take this really complex topic and talk about it to 7th graders? Because it's in the standard, but I'm not really sure. That seems like that's a crazy thing to talk about to 7th graders. Just ask it and it'll give you some ideas on how to do it. So there's just so many cool ways, to maximize this and to use it and to help our kids out, and the job thing. I just watched a video yesterday. There's a company out there called, I think it's called Figure. They're building bipedestal robots, so humanoid robots that they are potentially going to be launching within the next calendar year, that are going to be working in warehouses, and they use AI. So literal robots that are walking around performing human tasks, that have artificial intelligence, that are able to do things like move boxes in warehouses and restack stuff. And one of the things that was said in that was like, well, what about the jobs you're displacing? And he said, we are going to these warehouses, and these warehouses cannot find people to work in them. And like they are at a labor crisis. And so these robots aren't taking jobs that humans have. They're replacing they're taking jobs that these companies can't hire people for. And they're using AI. They just have cameras on top that scan things, and they walk around, and they pick stuff up, they manipulate. It's crazy. It's literally the future that we're living in now. But that's what our kids are going to be in. Like that could be in 15 years, be just very common for, my 6-year-old, who goes in and he's just working side by side with robots. Wild to think of. But that's why we need to talk about it to him now, right? Like, and get him ready, because it's not going anywhere. So.
So in reflecting on all of our conversations here this morning on Teacher Talk, 3 things. Number 1, you were right, all the feels. So I started off not knowing how to feel. I still don't know how to feel. I have a certain sense of excitement over the potential of AI to help our students. This sense of kind of wonder and incredulousness that we could have robots working in warehouses, kind of throwing me into that I, Robot movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a Will Smith movie?
It is, yeah.
Those are some of the things that I think of. Just the possibilities and the potential are so overwhelming, exciting, and terrifying in the same breath. So you are right, all the feels. The second thing is I can't help but think, as we consider developing our students for what's next in that future, given technology advances, is the importance of critical thinking and analysis and some of those higher level skills to help them better consume information and better utilize all the tools at their disposal. And the third thing that I keep thinking about is what you just mentioned and Stacy mentioned is get educated. Get educated. Know more. The more you know, the better we can leverage all of the tools and the potentials for our students and for our communities. So thank you for all of those things. I feel like my mind is about to explode.
How I felt for like the last year, like diving into all this stuff. It just, it's just so interesting in all the things it can do. And we're like, this is another thing I'll kind of leave with too, is, we had this conversation actually as a team the other day with my RETCs, and we talked about like, is AI creative? And it's like, well, no, it's not supposed to be, but like, maybe, like, because it's just regurgitating thought, like other people's thoughts and stuff, not even other people's thoughts, its own thoughts, but it's not creative. It doesn't have emotion. It's not sentient. But it could be maybe in the future. We don't know, because there's other levels of this stuff that the companies have not released to us yet. And so I don't want to pretend to know what the future of AI is, because I already do know that there's other levels where they're like, yeah, we're not giving you ChatGPT 5 yet. Like, you're not ready for that. And you're like, whoa, like that's kind of scary. Like, what does that mean? Like it's, and so, that's the thing that we have to kind of be aware of, like step back a little bit, take what we have, learn about it, use it, maximize it, and just let the technology be as helpful as it can be for you. Like, that's the important part here. Like, free up time. If I would have had this as a first-year teacher, it would have made my life so much easier. Not to mention a 15-year teacher, but like I talked to the new teacher cadre last week, and I was like, or the other night, and it's like, man, if you guys had this, like a standards unpacker, like, I don't even know what that standard means. There's an AI tool that'll unpack that standard for you. Like, that's awesome, so just stuff like that just can be so helpful for everybody.
We have just started to unpack in this Teacher Talk the potential and everyone's knowledge and awareness of artificial intelligence. So in that spirit of getting educated, we want to take this moment to invite our viewers, our Facebook community, to register and attend our annual Technology Summit Friday, January 19th at Sauk Valley Community College in Dixon. It is an all-day summit. We're going to have Ben keynote and go take a little bit of a deeper dive into this idea of AI. And we're going to be celebrating some of our local educators and the technology work that they are doing in their very own classrooms. So please join us for that event. Registration is up and available on our website at www.roe47.org.
I am super excited for that day. I have now 10 local teachers, 9 local teachers, I guess, well, 8 if you don't count me, but I'm local, so that counts. that have already committed to host in our station rotation in the afternoon. I got another commitment this morning. Lots of AI tools, lots of non-AI tools though too, some STEM stuff, just some really, really cool stuff. I think the day is going to be pretty great. And I'm going to frame the keynote around practical uses of AI. So, a lot of this background stuff that we talked about today, probably going to skip a lot of that and just say like, hey, this is how we can use it. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. And not so much like, here's 17 different AI tools. Like, it's like, no, we're going to focus in on how to maximize this. So yeah, come hang out with us. It'll be really fun.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that day for sure. So get registered. Come see us on January 19th. Ben, thank you so much for your time this morning. As always, we so appreciate you. Your t-shirt is in the mail. We will, next time you're on Teacher Talk, we'll have you wear it. But
I want it.
Always appreciate you being so willing to come and share all things technology with us here on Teacher Talk. So looking forward to January 19th. And thank you so much for all that you do.
You're very welcome.
Friends, that wraps us up for this edition of Teacher Talk. Thanks for joining us here this morning. And on behalf of my friend, colleague, and co-host, Ms. Stacey Dingus, and our special guest today, Ben Sondgeroth from the Illinois LTC, we wish you a wonderful rest of your Thursday and even better Friday. A fantastic winter weekend, gearing up for the end of the year and the holiday season. And we will see you right back here next Thursday for another edition of Teacher Talk.